Welcome to Let's Roger That. I'm Gilles, and today we're going to make a surface gauge for beginners. This is a very easy design, made to be easy, simple, but functional. So I think you're going to enjoy this. Let's go. The whole design comes with free plans. Easy to read, nothing technical. It's really easy. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parts to make. And all of them can be made very easily if you obtain materials that are already at the proper dimensions. The other thing that's very nice about this project is that it doesn't require a lot of technical tools. Now, of course, if you have a lathe, it's going to be pretty important, and you'll be able to make all of this. Now, if you look at some of the features here, some of them can actually be skipped, like these angles here. They're not hard to make, but nevertheless, you can skip them. This, I made them round and whatnot in the design, but you don't have to do that. You can actually leave them square or file down the corners, that sort of thing. Even some of these here are very simple to make. Okay, so before you get started with this project, so here's a list of materials that you will need. Now, I should mention that it doesn't really matter what kind of materials you've got. If you've got stuff, whatever it is, mild steel, whatever, it'll work. All right? It may not be perfect for the long term, but this is a beginner project to get you started making some tools that you will need. Now, optimally, if you use material, like for example for the base, which requires a flat surface, and you want it to be flat and undamaged, and you want it to remain undamaged for a long period, some hot roll square steel will do better. But if all you've got is some mild, say 1018, that's fine, all right? It is not a big deal. The rest of it, there's nothing that requires it to be a specific type of material. Nothing. There are no critical measurements in any of this project. The only thing that's important is a nice flat surface on this, on the base, and of course, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention a spring. You'll need a spring. And so a nice flat surface for the base, and the rest will take care of itself once it holds the test indicator. That's it. So I need to make a feature that's going to accommodate this rod. And so I'm going to make this 3/8 of an inch, 375 thousandths. All right, so as you can see here, multiple scribes. These would be the 45 degrees on the outside, and this is 60 degrees. And 60 degrees leaves us a lot more material here to do the feature that's required for this item here, right? The pivot. So as much as I would have liked to have done the 45, I'm going to do the 60 degrees. So I'm going to carve in like this with an end mill, a 3/8 end mill, and then just shave off the rest individually on each side. This is where we were when I left off. So we've got to carve out a slot here. That'll be about 1/4 inch in width and a depth of 1/2 inch. There's going to be 2 holes here for springs. They're going to be 1/4 inch in diameter. There's going to be 1 hole here to accommodate a stepped screw that I'm going to make. The screw is going to look kind of like that. Now, in a normal Starrett surface gauge, there are 2 screws, one on each side, and they're conical at their ends, and they squeeze this and center it. I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, so the quill is locked so it doesn't go too deep. Okay, that fits the spring I want to go with. So let's move on to the side hole. Now in this hole for this bit here, we only have to clear up to the slot. Past that doesn't really matter, it's going to get carved out by the end mill. All right, now this video is made for beginners to have an easy project to do. Okay, right? This is not made to be a big challenge. It's made so you have a nice basic tool that you can start working with. So if you want to stop working on your base right now, you can. The next item that we have to make is this right here. So when you look at it, you can see, okay, if it sits flat like that, there's a groove in there. That's to give it that, you know, that pivoting effect, right? So let's get ready to make this. Now, the only flat surface on this thing is right here, and we're not going to make all of these angles, but there are certain things that we need to do. Just to make it easy, let's go through the whole drawing thing. It's kind of basic, but it's kind of important, right? So here's our pivot. All this here can be square-ish if you want. It's no big deal. The only thing that really matters is that this is flat, where your hole is located, and this part right here, okay? The length is the length of your surface gauge. So why do we want this flat here? Well, quite frankly, we need to make this hole. That'll be our adjustment hole, right? And it's a whole lot easier to drill a hole into a flat surface. So if I've got a piece that's square like that, it's a lot easier to drill into here than it would be if we had an angled piece that's already carved out. So do it when this is still flat. All right, so I found myself a piece of steel that's 1/4 of an inch thick. So basically, this is an L shape. Let's get that done. Okay, so I've got my L-shaped thingy cut up. So I looked at the starred one, and this here, the on center, is 5/16 of an inch from the end. So I'm going to measure 5/16, and I'm going to punch, make a mark here with my punch, and then I'm going to drill a hole. Got this hole made here, right? And that's our pivot. So that's the important part to remember. A pivot, in order to work, everything has to be centered with it. The angle starts at the center of this pivot hole. And then from there, pick an angle, doesn't matter at this point, right? We just want to make it an angle, and then we'll cut straight across like that. hold that thing here. See, it looks similar. It's not identical, but it does need to be. The next thing to do for this is this hole. Okay, I'm basing my design on stair, but I'm making it as minimalistic as possible. So let's look at what's involved in the next part. That's the part that actually attaches to this here and then holds the shaft. So the only thing we need really is to make one of these cylinders and one of these cylinders. This can be normal. Remember, I cut that hole here at 5/16. That's what's going to indicate on that. Now, before I actually proceed here with this tube, we'll have to measure this here, right? Now, why is that important? Well, quite frankly, the location of the slot in our surface gauge base is located in the same fashion or same distance as it is in the start unit. So we need to make sure that when we install all this stuff, that our shaft or vertical shaft is going to be centered with this thing. So that's why we need to make sure we get the length from here to here. So I've turned down the first outside diameter, which is 1/2 inch, because that's got to fit in this tube. Now let's try it on. Okay, works good. This doesn't have to be super tight. The inside diameter of this tube is 503 thousandths, and that's 500 thousandths, 1/2 inch. To do is turn the end part, this part, down to 250 thousandths. But if you're in need of a cutting tool, I make them for sale, and they're available at rogertoolscanada.com. All right, this is where we are now. And so we've got the pivot, the retaining screw for the pivot, right? we also have the basic retaining screw for the rod. That's gonna come up here like that. Of course, we need to drill the hole in there. This is 3/8, so we're gonna do that, all right? And then we need something for the test indicator to be held, all right? The test indicator adapter, this one. So let's figure out the sizes for this, and we'll end up with something that's basically like that without all of the fancy stuff. All right, so we've got 2 holes to drill. Now this is assuming you've already got your part squared 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1 inch, okay? At this point, you want to put a light chamfer on all of the holes. Okay, we've got these holes drilled out. And now at this point, we need to make a slot from one end all the way through one of those holes. Doesn't matter which at this point, the piece is exactly the same at both ends. So now we've got that slot all cut up and whatnot. You might have used a grinder or a hacksaw or whatever. It doesn't matter, okay? But we've got our basic tool. Now I'm about to start making those knobs. Those are the 2 knobs that are made for this. The threads are 14 or 1/4 28. These are through holes for those threads, but this one is not going to be. If you recall, I grabbed a 1032 bolt. Well, I'm going to cut off the head. I'm going to insert it in here. It'll be a blind hole, and I'm going to Loctite that in its place. So I'm going to make all this out of brass. You can use mild steel, whatever you want. It's up to you, okay? Before I actually put this whole thing together, I'd like to mention that at every step of the process, you have to file and deburr. Otherwise, if you put your piece, say we're working on this one, and you square this up, and then, you know, if you don't deburr it, there's going to be burrs and things are not going to be exact. So take the time to deburr between every single step, and you'll have a whole lot less trouble as you go along. Now, these are all rough pieces, so look at this here. So we got some roughness happening. So how are we going to take care of that? Well, quite simply, well, you don't have to, but if you want to make it look nice, you can take some 600 grit paper, a little bit of oil, a couple drops, and sand away. Now here's a little trick for you. If you've never done a whole lot of this sanding stuff, you know, try to buff it out and whatnot. When you do, okay, like this is a piece of 400 emery ply. When you do, try to do it at about a 30-degree angle, and you'll see that it fools the eye. It's really surprising. Like if you do it like straight up and down along the piece, it'll look like you did. But look at that. It's really cool. So that's just a little trick for you. All right, so let's assemble the surface gauge. First of all, the spring is going to go right here in the base. Okay. All right, and we've got our pivot. Let's put the pivot in place. Now we're gonna have to press down on the spring in order to get the pivot screw to fit. All right, let's do that. We have to get the 3/16 parts to locate into the hole. Now just a quick reminder, or a tip I guess, when you make that pivot screw, let the threads extend about 1 or 2 thousandths into this. That way it'll tighten this up and it won't flip-flop over when it's time to have the shaft on and all that stuff. All right, so don't tighten things too badly for now. Now we're going to put on our really nice fine adjustment screw. And why did I make this at 1 inch? Quite simply, a larger knob allows you to do finer adjustment. So that is the reason. And it's really hard to turn those little starret knobs. It's really not a refined thing. Okay, so now we've got this here, this holding bolt. Sorry, surface plate, I'm an abuser. Okay, I'll just start this here a bit for now. Don't have to go tight just yet. Now these knobs here are 3/4 of an inch, and that's the reason is because when you're adjusting the fine adjustment, it'll tilt, and if it's an inch, it's not going to allow you to do a whole lot. Okay, so when that shaft is in, now that knob turns very nicely. All right, let's put it at an angle just for fun. So here we are at an angle, right? Now we've got to put in the other retainer. Now that knob's going to go on the other side. Or does it? Hang on here. Yes, it does. Okay. That goes in here, right? The slot. There you go. Turn that. Put our knob in there. Now it doesn't matter where you put this, your indicator is going to go in and attach to that adapter. See, that holds nice and tight. Now this here is not as nice as I would like it to be. There we go. Okay. So now I'll have to loosen this up a touch. I didn't have to. Okay. And there you go. It holds very nicely. Now we have to put it, there's a, oh my God. Yeah. So there's this dovetail. The dovetail has to be vertical because it's vertical on our test indicator. Put that in there. Okay. Now you tighten the adjustment. Now if you're buying an Meditoya test indicator, it's going to come with this little slug. Okay, nice. Now we can loosen this up a bit, adjust the indicator, put it nice and vertical. Voila. That's it. We're ready to work. So there you go. Let's try our fine adjustment. Now look at the post. Beautiful. Yeah, this is absolutely great. I'm very pleased with this. Quite frankly, it works better than my Starrett. It may not have all the exact same features, but it does the exact same job. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed making this with me. If you have any questions or comments, all you beginners out there or just intermediates, please leave me a comment. I really love to interact with you. Now, if you make this, I'd love to see it. So post it out there and link to my video, and I'll make sure to go and have a look at that, and we'll start talking about it. So anyhow, please like and subscribe, and as I said before, leave me a comment. I always love to hear from you. Take care. Bye bye.